Hello, in this video I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the features provided by OpenDNS, and then also take you through the registration and the setup process for getting your home router configured to use the OpenDNS services. As I indicated in the training, OpenDNS is a company that basically provides some features that allow your network or your computer or it prevents your computer to browse or serve to sites that might have phishing attacks. It also allows you to filter your content so that if there's any inappropriate content that's being served through your internet connection, OpenDNS will basically filter and stop that content from being retrieved through your computer. So couple of quick things. The video is going to be broken up into 3 different sections. First, I'm going to show you how to set up your OpenDNS account. And then I'm going to take you through how to configure your DNS or your router with for OpenDNS, or so you can use the OpenDNS services. And then lastly, I'm going to show you a little application that updates your IP addresses or your IP address with OpenDNS. So a couple of things on that. I may have to stop the video here and there if I have technical difficulties or as I'm transitioning from one section to another, so just be aware of that. And then before we get started, there will be a couple of things you'll need. First, of course, you're going to need a PC, whether it's a Mac or a laptop, a Windows laptop or a Linux operating system, it doesn't matter. A browser. More importantly, you're going to need access to internet. And then, of course, we're going to be modifying your router, so you're going to need access to your router along with your username and password as well. I'm trying to keep this video very short, so if there's any issues you might have, I'm going to point you to the troubleshooting page of OpenDNS that might help you in trying to figure out some of those issues that you're having. Okay, so to get started, go ahead and open up your internet browser or Chrome or whatever browser preference you have, and browse to the OpenDNS website, which is up here, www.opendns.com. And of course, OpenDNS is a for-profit organization, so they have services they provide for business and then services they provide for personal use. So go ahead and click on the right side for personal use. And at this point, what's going to happen is OpenDNS will take you to their home internet security page. And here, this is going to give you 2 options. It's going to ask you if you want to set up parental controls or if you want to set up enhanced DNS. Enhanced DNS is a great way to speed up your internet surfing and create a more reliable DNS service, but we're not going to worry about that right now. What we want is this parental control section, so go ahead and click on Get Started. And in the parental control section, you'll be brought up to this its page. And basically, OpenDNS offers 3 different services for parental controls. They offer the OpenDNS Home Edition, the OpenDNS Home VIP, which is a paid-for service, and OpenDNS Family Shield. The one that I'll be talking today is the OpenDNS Home Edition. The OpenDNS Home Edition and VIP Edition are similar. The VIP Edition provides more customizable filtering, additional support, and greater statistics. It's $19.95 a year. And then the difference between OpenDNS Home Edition and OpenDNS Family Shield is that Family Shield basically allows you to set up these services without having the need to customize any of your websites. So in other words, if all you want is just to use the OpenDNS web filtering or content filtering services, then you can use Family Shield to set up your router and then you set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about configuring or anything like that. However, at the same time, you don't have those customizable filtering options and statistic options that OpenDNS Home has. And I'll show you some of those in a little bit, and then I'll show you the differences. So for now, go ahead and click on Sign Up Now. And this will basically take you to their sign up page. In this page, just go ahead and type in your regular information, whatever information you have there. So I'll go ahead and just do that right now. And the reason I'm doing it manually now versus doing it before and having it all prepped and set up is because you actually get a different menu option when you click on the continue button at the bottom. So I want you to definitely see that before we move forward. And then go ahead and just provide it a password. And you definitely want to retain this password and your email address, since that's the way you're going to be getting access to your customized section of OpenDNS in the future. And here where it says where to hear about DNS, just select the best option for you. And then more importantly here where it says where will you use this account, you want to make sure you use household. If you provide another selection, it's going to ask you for additional questions. So at this point just use household, and we'll leave it at that. More than likely you'll be using it for the household, so that's what we'll leave it at. Once you hit continue, OpenDNS is going to send you a verification email. It'll take you to this page here, of course, but it also is going to send you an email asking you to verify your account. So if I go over here to my email, I can see that I got an email from OpenDNS, and then just go ahead and click on the registration to confirm your email address. And that's going to take you basically to the OpenDNS dashboard, which is basically the home plate for OpenDNS. Okay, now that you have your OpenDNS account registered and confirmed, we'll move to the second phase of the video, and that's to set up your router. The last part you should have of the video, you should have arrived at the OpenDNS dashboard, which again is the home plate or the home page for OpenDNS. We'll come back to this later, but for now, go back to the original tab where you had we had continue, and then moved you to this page. So again, OpenDNS can be set up in multiple ways. You can set it up through your home router, or you can set it up individually through a computer or laptop, or you can even do it on servers if you want to do it that way, or if you want to do it also, you can do it on smart devices. However, the way I'm going to recommend, or the way I'm going to show in the video, is that you actually set up OpenDNS on your home router. And the main purpose for doing that is any device that connects to your home router, whether it's a computer or a smart device or a tablet or anything of that nature, a game console, they're all going to go through your router to get to the internet. So by setting up OpenDNS on your home router, you're basically creating this filtering capability, or content filtering capability, at the perimeter of your router, at what we call the gateway of your router or the internet. So that's the way we're going to proceed. I'm going to take you through the steps, but I wanted to show you, if you click on home routers here, OpenDNS actually has a great section for how to set up different type of routers. So if you have a router and you have questions about how to set it up, if you go into this page, OpenDNS provided a good starting point on how to set up different type of manufacturer routers. If you decided to use Family Shield, they actually give you a Family Shield configuration instruction page at the very top, so you can follow it. Or if you just want to look at more generalized router configurations, you can use that as well here in the top. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take you through the router configuration part of it using one of our routers, which is a Linksys router, so it's going to look different than possibly what you have at home. And that's what I have here. So first things first, you need to determine where or what IP address your router is in. And for that, we're going to use some advanced tools that IT specialists use all the time, specifically the command line tool. And if you have Windows 7, the way you get to the command line is you go down to the Start button, and within Search Programs and Files, I want you to type in CMD, or Charlie Mary David. And I'll show you that, guys, real briefly here. And that Charlie Mary David will basically bring up this program up here called the command line program. If you go ahead and click on it, it'll basically bring up this black window here, or the command line. I already have one open at the bottom, so I'll go to that one here. And what we're going to do at this point, and let me just clear all this stuff that I have here. What we're going to do at this point is we're going to basically type in a command to figure out what your IP address is. So here, what you want to do is you want to type in ipconfig and then /all. And let me see if I can bring up the zoom capability here. Okay. So at this point, let me see. There we go. There we go. Let me see if I can zoom in. This thing is not working. There we go. So at this point, I type in ipconfig /all in the command prompt, and if you hit enter, it'll give you a whole bunch of different numbers. There's a lot of meaning to these numbers, but what you're looking for is basically one that says default gateway, or a line down here called default gateway. And it's typically within the Ethernet adapter local area connections, and it might be in a different local area connection number. But just look for, in this type of content, just look for default gateway, which is about halfway through the page here. And note that number. In this case, the default gateway is 1076.1. And let me see if I can bring up the zoom capability here. Okay. So at this point, 161.129. And the reason I'm having you note that number is because that's the default gateway IP address is typically the IP address of your router, and that's what you're going to need to type into your browser to get access to your router. So if you come out here to your browser, if you look at my browser here, I typed in that exact same number, 1076.161.129. And when you type that in, you'll get a prompt, a username and password prompt. So go ahead and fill that information in. If you don't have that, what I recommend is if you're working with an internet service provider and they provided the router, is that you go ahead and work with them to reset your router. If not, you can go online and you can look at different videos on how to reset the specific router that you have. Now, a big caveat to that, if you do reset your router, you might be resetting some settings that might make your device inoperable, or specifically it might not give you access to the internet any longer just because the settings have changed. So anyway, just FYI on that one. So once you reach your router, the next step is to modify those settings so that any of your traffic goes to the OpenDNS servers for resolution or to resolve those numbers or those IP or that web addresses. I'm sorry. And what you're looking for is something something where it says local area network or local configuration or something of that nature. This router, basically what we're looking for is something called DHCP. That's typically where you change those settings. This router just happens to have it up here on the top, so I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And then within that configuration, or when you get to that DHCP configuration, what you're going to look for is somewhere where it says DNS settings or DNS server or DNS numbers or whatever. And this one just happens to have them towards the bottom. It's right here. And the DNS server, those IP addresses are basically what tells your computers that anytime you ask for a website, google.com, that it must go to OpenDNS's routers or domain name servers, or DNS servers, sorry, to resolve that IP address. And by doing that, OpenDNS at the same time will look at the IP or the URL and IP address of the website you're resolving and tell whether or not that's appropriate content, depending on the settings you provided, whether or not it's appropriate content for your network. So that's why modifying the DNS settings on your router is so important, because that's what it basically tells all your devices to go to OpenDNS to figure out whether or not that content is allowable depending on the filter level that you set. So what you need to do is once you have that DNS location figured out on your router, you need to type in the following IP addresses, the ones that are indicated there, the 208.67.222.222 and 208.67.220.220. You need to type those into your settings so that, again, your router can tell your computer where to send those website requests to, specifically to OpenDNS. If you have more than one open octet there or open available options, like here I have two different options where I can type in OpenDNS. If you happen to have 3 or 4, just go ahead and repeat the same numbers in number 3 and number 4 sequentially from what there are now. Once you have completed that, go ahead and save the settings or submit your settings to the router. Now, depending on your router, this can take anywhere from, I don't know, 30 seconds. It can be instantly to 30 seconds to a couple minutes. So just be aware of that. I pre-configured this to be set up just because I didn't want to go through that process of resetting the router, since that would restart the router and take a while for the video to complete at that point. So I've already have those in my settings, and they're ready to go. Now, one way to check to make sure that your system is using those settings, your computer or your devices, is to actually go back to the same window we used earlier and do type in some commands in here to actually provide you the new IP address. Basically, at this point, what you're going to have to do, because you modify those settings on your routers, you're going to have to either, one, restart your computer, which is probably the easiest thing to do. Restart your computer so that your computer can get the latest information from the router, the IP address, the gateway, and more importantly, the DNS configuration. Or you can run some commands on the command prompt here that will do that for you. And I'll do that real quickly. The first command you want to run in here is called an ipconfig/space/release. And let me go back here so I can show you. Okay, so there it is, ipconfig/release. And the reason you want to have and what this command actually does is it's going to release the IP address of your system so that you no longer have that IP address for that system. Let's see here. I typed in the command wrong, so let me do that. I apologize. There we go. So now it just gives me basically a blank configuration for my system. If you look down here in the bottom right quickly enough, you would see that the network connection went from solid to a yellow colorish and then back. Now what we want to do is we basically want to go ahead and renew the IP address. Sometimes the system will do it automatically, sometimes it won't, so I'm going to go ahead and just force it to do it. And by renewing the configuration, you're basically telling your router to give you all those IP addresses and information back again. So that way you have the latest DNS information from OpenDNS. So all you do is ipconfig /renew, and then you just hit enter. And that will take a couple seconds. It can take anything from 4 to 5 seconds to maybe 15 seconds, depending on the connection of your system. And that basically renews your configuration. Now, what we want to do is we want to verify that the DNS information we typed in our router is now being transferred to the computer. So to do that, we have to do another command called ipconfig /all. And what ipconfig /all does is it gives you all the configuration for your Ethernet adapters. And that's going to tell you whether or not the DNS configuration that's on your router got passed on to the machine. Okay, so do that and then hit enter. And here we're going to look at something different. So let me just find it. There it is. So what you're looking for here now is this configuration called DNS servers. And if you look at the right, those numbers, the 208.67.222.222 and 208.67.220.220 are now in this configuration settings for your Ethernet adapter. So that's good news. That's exactly what you want to see. Okay, so once you verified that, then you're ready to go. If that didn't come through the way you thought it did, go back and check your settings. Make sure that the router took the configuration settings you put in there. You might have to just log out of the router and log back in and make sure that these configuration settings held. That's probably the best way to do it. Okay, so the next step after that is to actually test the configuration, make sure that your router configurations came through. So if you go back to this page here, at the bottom there's a test your settings. And before I move on to that, I just want to point out that those numbers that we use are up here in the bottom top corner. Those are the numbers provided to from OpenDNS, so you know that's exactly where I got those numbers. Okay, so to test our settings, just go down here to the bottom where it says test your settings, and just click there to test your settings. And what's going to happen is basically OpenDNS is going to send a request to its servers and say, hey, are we routing through OpenDNS servers? And if it comes back, it's going to come back with a success, and that means you set up your configuration on your router correctly, and everything's good to go. If it fails, you'll probably get, I believe it's a reddish or a pinkish sign here or window here that basically says, oops, you're not using OpenDNS now. And that's when you got to go back and check your settings again, make sure that your router configuration settings are successful, make sure that your computer is getting those router configuration settings through that command that I showed you earlier. And if all need be, just go ahead and disconnect and reconnect your router and then turn off and turn on your computer, and maybe that will just refresh the settings for you automatically versus manually. Okay, so the next step is to actually show you some of the customized options. So I'll come back for that. Alright, so the next step in configuring OpenDNS after you configured your router successfully with the OpenDNS information is to actually configure your OpenDNS network, or your network, to tell your network, OpenDNS, what your network is, so that you're able to customize the filtering settings. So once you've confirmed that your router's set up successfully, go ahead and go back into the OpenDNS dashboard that you saw earlier. If this has already disappeared, you can go to opendns.com and just click on login at the top corner of your settings, and it'll take you back to this main home page here, and this is where we want to start for the next section. So here, basically what we're doing is, again, we're telling OpenDNS what your home network is. And by doing that, this gives you the ability to customize your settings for your OpenDNS installation. Remember, there's an OpenDNS Home Edition and then OpenDNS Shield Edition. The Shield Edition basically is one of those set it and forget it type of things. OpenDNS will tell you what sites are filtered and what content is blocked, and that's all you get. There's no customization along with that. OpenDNS Home Edition will actually allow you to customize the level of filtering that you want to occur, and also give you the capability to look at statistics as to what type of sites have been accessed in the last 30 days or so. Again, that's the difference between OpenDNS Home Edition and the paid edition, is the paid edition is going to give you more statistics and more customization along with that. So once you're here in the home page, we're going to go ahead and add a network. So go ahead and click on Add a Network here. And then what's going to happen is OpenDNS is going to read your public IP address. And that IP address is one that's provided to you by your internet service provider. This information should already be here automatically. If you don't have any IP information here, that means there's something wrong. Either you're currently in a private IP address mode for some reason, it's double natted, or that IP address has already been registered with OpenDNS. So possibly one of the easiest ways to resolve this issue is to just disconnect and reconnect your router, and at that point your ISP will provide you a new IP address, and that again should automatically pop up here. If it doesn't, then we're probably looking at that you're having an issue. And then also, if you look at the top corner here, or the top of your screen here, let me zoom in here real quick. You'll notice that there's also a current IP address little thing up there, and those two numbers should match. The ones on top and the one where it says add a network, those should be the same as well. So just FYI. If that information is already pre-filled, just go ahead and click on add a network. Now OpenDNS basically is recording and taking that information and adding that network to their system. One thing that OpenDNS is going to ask you is to give your network a name, and the main reason they do this is if in case you have multiple networks that are using OpenDNS. You can type anything here, my home network, home, whatever you want. Number two is this a dynamic IP address? For the most part, yes, you're going to have a dynamic IP address. For those of you who have a static address, you'll probably already know that, so no need there. So go ahead and keep this checked. And number three, download the software and stay safe. Basically, this is the DNS updater. This application here, you definitely want to download it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it here and have it start downloading. But this updater application will basically tell OpenDNS what your latest IP address is. Because your IP address is dynamic, your internet service provider may refresh your IP address once a day, or every couple days, or every couple weeks. However, when that happens, OpenDNS will no longer know which one is your network, because that IP address will probably be given to someone else. At that point, it needs to know, there has to be a way for OpenDNS to find out what your IP address is for your current network. And the way it does that is through this OpenDNS updater. Now, if you have Mac, there's a Mac edition to this, so it probably says OpenDNS updater for Mac. And I haven't tried it for Linux, but I'm assuming you probably have something like OpenDNS updater for Linux. I apologize, I haven't tried it in those operating systems. Okay, once you've done those three things, go ahead and click Done. At this point, you'll be taken to your OpenDNS network homepage, I guess. This is where you can actually select your different networks, or here's where you can select multiple networks if you had multiple networks for OpenDNS. Here you only have one, and more than likely if you're using this for home, you'll only have one. Okay, so here in this network section, it tells you the name of your network, your IP address, and statistics. What I'm going to show you next is how to customize the filtering for OpenDNS. So to do that, you need to click on this little IP address here, and that again should coincide with the IP address here on top, and that may change as your IP address is changed, and that Windows updater will change that IP address within OpenDNS. So go ahead and click on it, and what's going to happen is OpenDNS is going to basically open the settings or the filtering level page. This page provides you the capability to set the filtering level for your network. And what I mean by filtering level, it gives you the ability to select what type of filtering do you want to occur on your network. You have custom and none. None, of course, means it's turned off. And then you have low, moderate, and high. If you look here on the right side of those selections, you have a view selection, and open up a window, and this will tell you the type of sites that are going to be blocked if you enable that filtering level. So for low, it's going to be tasteless, proxy anonymizer, sexuality, and pornography. Those are the basics. If you look a little bit higher and moderate, you'll get more type of categories that will be filtered. Websites, alcohol, pornography again, gambling, drugs, alcohol. Well, I already said alcohol. Adware. Those are the type of sites that will be blocked if you go with moderate. And then if you go with high, you'll get a lot more sites that are blocked. So I believe this one has like handguns, file storage, games, discrimination, things of that nature. Now, if one of these three somewhat meets your needs, but not entirely. So for example, I use the moderate level, but I also wanted to have a little bit more than just what the 13 categories that are in moderate. What you can do is just select the level that you want and then customize it. If you click customize, you can actually select the different levels or categories that you want to blog. So typically I'll do things like, oh, I don't know, let's see, what are the ones that I've been doing here? Web spam is one that I do. I might do park domains, just because it's always interesting how those things come through. Classifieds, I'll park that, or I'll block that out. Also tobacco. And a lot of this I do it because I have small children in the house, so there's only very specific sites that I want them to visit. So anyways, pick your level that you're comfortable with and then select it. And at that point you can customize it. And when you do that, when you select the moderate level and you customize, it'll actually come under here as a custom category. So I'm going to choose moderate and then I'll apply. So go ahead and apply. And now it tells you it's going to take about 3 minutes. I've seen it take as long as 30 minutes, so just be aware of it, for anywhere from 3 to a couple more minutes than that. This bottom part here, manage your individual domains. This is another customized option that OpenDNS provides to you. If there's a very specific domain or web page that you want blocked, you can do it at this level. Let's say that OpenDNS has not been updated and there's the latest, nastiest website out there and you know about it, and you want to block it. What you can do is you go into this customized settings and you can actually go ahead and add that website. So in this case, we'll say it's google.com. Google's my favorite website, so it's definitely not google.com. But let's say it was, you can go ahead and click or add google.com and then select whether you always want to block or never block. Those are the two options you have. And then go ahead and click and add domain, and that'll add the domain to your network. At this point, it's also going to take about 3 minutes. I've seen it take as long as 30 minutes as well for adding individual domains, so just be aware of that. And again, you can also do this for websites that you want unblocked. Let's say that OpenDNS, for whatever reason, they made a mistake and there's a website that your child needs for school and it's currently blocked, but you need it unblocked. You can always go in here and unblock the website. So you can do school.org or whatever that website is and say unblock, or never block, I'm sorry, and add domain. Again, they'll go ahead and add that domain to your settings, and that domain will not be blocked from your network. So, okay, so basically what we've done now is we've installed or configured your router. We set up the OpenDNS network on, or configured it for OpenDNS. Okay, so the last step in configuring OpenDNS for your home is to actually install the OpenDNS updater. And again, there's a Windows and Mac edition. Earlier I had asked you to please download the Windows updater, which should have downloaded here to the bottom left if you're in Windows, and probably your downloads folder if you're in Mac. But the next step is to go ahead and install that. So go ahead and open up the OpenDNS installer. Go ahead and hit run. If you require admin rights, go ahead and type those in. And then just go ahead and click install, and that basically installs the updater. And the updater is a very simple application. All it does is it sends the latest IP address of your system to OpenDNS. And the reason that's important is that OpenDNS uses that IP address to determine which one's your network. And by doing so, OpenDNS allows you to customize what filters, filter levels or domains you have blocked on your network. Without this, OpenDNS could not determine what IP address is your network or your network in, and would not be able to provide you that filtering capability. So go ahead and click finish. I've installed OpenDNS before, so it automatically opened up with my account information. However, yours will probably ask for that account information as well. If you look at here in this middle part of the OpenDNS updater, and let me just see if I can bring in my my zoom went away. But if you look here in the middle, you basically have the standard information that the OpenDNS updater application or little app has. It has your OpenDNS account. This is the same account you use to register your OpenDNS network on. It has your home network, which we selected earlier. More importantly, it has your IP address. So this IP address here should match the IP address up here on top, because that's the IP address that you're currently registered on. It tells you whether or not you're using OpenDNS, yes or no. If you have no here, then there's something wrong. You have to check your settings because otherwise your OpenDNS is not working properly. And then this one tells you when was the last time the IP address was updated against OpenDNS, and this one was less than a minute ago. You can always click Update Now, and they'll send the latest information to OpenDNS. So anyways, that really takes care of all the configuration that you need to set up OpenDNS for your home. The next things I'll be talking about is support and testing. So earlier I mentioned that if you needed assistance with this or with setting up OpenDNS, that OpenDNS had a great support page. If you go to your OpenDNS dashboard, on top you have the support tab. In this page, OpenDNS actually provides quite a bit of information. The knowledge base contains topics or questions that have been asked before, and they're published and they're searchable. So if you have a question on a type of router that you can't find information on, you can always type it in here and see if they covered how to configure that type of router. Or if you're having trouble with some part of OpenDNS, or you want to know how to configure the OpenDNS levels, you can do a search for their knowledge base. If you don't get any answers there, you can always go ahead and post a question to the forum. The forum is basically an open community of OpenDNS users that provides guidance on how to use OpenDNS, and typically you can submit a question and they'll get back to you on that. And then if all fails, just go ahead and submit a support ticket to OpenDNS. Some of it is free. Some of the basics is free with OpenDNS, but some of them you have to pay for. That's where the free versus the paid account comes handy. You can also download the updater client for Windows and Mac here as well. So the next step, truly what I'm going to do is just really go and show you that this OpenDNS installation is working. What I did earlier is I went out there to Google and just looked up a gambling site, Texas Hold'em. If you remember, under the moderate level that we selected for OpenDNS, gambling was blocked. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to go ahead and click on Texas Hold'em Full Tilt Poker here, and what I should get is a block message from OpenDNS. And there you go. OpenDNS, this domain is blocked, gives you the domain, and tells you to contact your network administrator. So that's basically what your users will get if they go to a block site, or someone in your family will go if they go to a block site. Another way to test OpenDNS is actually to go to the OpenDNS welcome page, and you can do that by going to opendns.org/welcome and then /. And if you go to that website, you should get another web page that tests your OpenDNS settings. If everything is correct, you should get a check mark on the top here. And that basically indicates that your OpenDNS settings were correct. And there it is. Now, if you get an X here, that means there's something wrong with your OpenDNS. It can either be on your router configuration or your network configuration within the OpenDNS dashboard. So you'll have to go back and do some troubleshooting at that point. So anyways, thank you for joining me today. That's really the entire setup for OpenDNS. I hope this video was useful, and I hope you find OpenDNS service to be useful for your home needs. Thank you. Okay, so one thing I neglected to mention in the video was how to look at some of your network settings and statistics for your network. So I'm appending this to the video and just giving you that additional information. But one thing I wanted to show you really quickly is I'm doing this video the following day, at which point I've disconnected my router and reconnected it. If you notice, the IP address that I was using earlier is now changed. And the reason it changed is because the updater on my system actually sent that new IP address to OpenDNS, and now it has the latest address there. So that's why the updater is so important, is because that keeps your IP address up to date with OpenDNS, and thus allows you to make these customized settings. So if you're here in the web content filtering, if you look to the bottom or on the left side of the page here, you have different settings. And I'm just going to walk you through some of these settings rather quickly. If you go into security, it basically is going to tell you the type of security features that OpenDNS currently has enabled, and these are some of these features are the ones that are going to prevent your computer from going to some of these nefarious sites that are out there. So the two most common ones are malware and botnet protection, and then phishing protection. So I'll let you read through those, but these are really just the most common. These are the ones that will be enabled by default. This one, block internal IP addresses, it basically says it's going to block any of the private IP addresses that are out there. So that's not as common. If you know what I'm talking about here, then go ahead and apply it. If you don't worry about it. Just make sure these two are enabled. The next one, customization. This one actually allows you to customize how OpenDNS looks to your customers or to someone in your household. This is primarily for small businesses or schools. If you want a different logo than OpenDNS, you can actually upload your own logo. If you actually want to have feedback, you can show the contact admin form, or if you don't want them to have that form, you can uncheck that. Blog page, you can always provide, or you can let OpenDNS provide its own content or information that comes up in the blog page, or if you want to provide your own, you can actually do that as well. So that's pretty nifty if you want to have a very specific message that says contact IT, and here's the information to contact IT. However, when OpenDNS provides this blog page, you have noticed that it says contact your network administrator. When someone actually clicks on that, he'll send a message to the email address that you registered with. So if someone in your family wants to get access to a web page, well, they usually just let you know personally. But if you're doing this in a school or in a small business, that message, if somebody types in something into that network administrator, that email will be the one that you registered OpenDNS with. So it's pretty nice. And then this one, as far as the phishing block page, so this one basically just blocks those pages that are considered or confirmed to be phishing sites. So the only reason it's telling you is that this is whether or not it wants to report back to you that it's a phishing site or not. There is no custom phishing block page message by default, but if you wanted to let the user know that this happens to be a phishing page, you can tell them by selecting here a phishing block page message. So I leave mine just that's no custom, it's fine. So if we go back, stats and logs, again, OpenDNS will actually allow you to log a lot of the traffic that goes through, or the requests that go through your network. So you can always enable it here, or if you go into the statistics page, you can actually look at the statistics for your network here as well. So all you do is just choose a range or a date, and then you hit apply, and it'll tell you the type of traffic that came through your network. The great thing here is that it will give you all your requests, or it'll tell you the unique domains. So if you have multiple domains that you're using, they'll show you which domains are coming through, or IP addresses. But more importantly, probably for parents, is which block domains were tried to reach, or did somebody try to reach, and this is where those block domains would come through. So again, this is the statistics part of it. You can just enable the statistics here, and that starts reporting. And I believe for OpenDNS, for the free version, you only get 30 days. And then if you want more than that, I believe you have to go with the paid version. But 30 days is pretty good for for a free service, so it's not too bad. Purge, I apologize. The purge, the records, or that you see over here, purge DNS data, that just simply means it's going to delete all the records they found in the network at that time. So it does it anyways after 30 days, but this one will just purge your data. So if you're resetting your network for whatever reason, or you want to see something, or you're testing something, you can just always purge your data at that moment. And then advanced settings, this one, all it's going to provide to you is just whether or not dynamic IP is enabled. This should be enabled because this actually works with the updater. So make sure that's enabled, and if it's not, enable it and then apply. So anyways, there's just some of the small customized features you can do. I think the most important one, or at least for us as a parent or someone with a business, is to actually look at your statistics and see what type of traffic was being served or requested from OpenDNS. Anyways, thanks again for joining me, and have a good day.